Hello, fantabulous souls. Welcome to Psychically Speaking, where we discuss all things body, mind, spirit related. I'm your host, Psychic Lisa Ann. As a professional psychic, medium, and healer, I have been assisting people for over 27 years. I am so excited to have you join me on this journey called life as we share, learn, and grow together. So let's jump right in. Today, we're talking about the energy of communication. And I have one simple little secret that is going to help you to become the best communicator possible. Now, before we get started, I have a question for all of you. Do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? Because that's a choice you need to make right now before you listen to the rest of this. Do you want to be right? Or do you want to be happy? Now, years ago, I had an epiphany and I realized that when you speak to people, it is not always the intent of what you're saying or the words that you're saying that people hear. What I realized is everybody has what I like to call a filter, meaning that the words they hear go through a filter. And at the end of that filter, it's not always heard the way that the words are said, right? So our filters are created throughout our lives. And it comes as a result of things that we believe about ourselves. It comes from things that maybe people have told us throughout our lives. It has been created through our childhood experiences. So let me give you an example. So let's say you have someone that as a child, they were always told, they weren't good enough. Okay. Now they grow up and they become an adult. And let's say they're in a marriage or a relationship. And let's say the wife comes to the husband and says, you know what? You're always working and we don't spend enough time together. You need to make time for me. Well, even though that wife, that person is saying that because she genuinely loves her husband and wants to spend more time with him, when it goes through the filter, because he was told his whole life he wasn't good enough, he's immediately going to hear, I'm not being a good husband. I'm not being a good provider. And now that's where the resistance comes in. Okay. So in that situation, when you're aware of what someone's filter is, if you approach it in a completely different way, you will get such better results, right? So now instead of that wife going to that husband and saying, we don't spend enough time together, you're working too much, we really need to spend more time together, even if she meant it from a very loving way, it's not going to be interpreted that way. So instead, what she can do, or vice versa, maybe it's the husband going to the wife or whatever the situation is. Instead, that person can say, remember a couple of months ago when we went to dinner at that fabulous place? Oh my God, we had the best time. And wasn't the dessert so great there? We should really do that again. What do you think? Right? Because now there's no way to go through that filter and process that in a negative way, right? I'm not saying you're not making enough time for me. I'm not saying you're working too much. I'm not saying, I really want to spend more time with you. I'm simply presenting it in a different way that it slips right through that filter. And now instead of that person interpreting that to be, I'm this horrible person and I never make time, now this person's thinking about the dinner and they're thinking about the wonderful time they had and they're thinking about how great the dessert was. And that is an example of filters. Now, I want you to think about the question I asked earlier. Do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? A lot of times when I talk to clients about this, they'll say to me, well, that person isn't making enough time for me. Or, why do I have to watch what I'm saying? Why can't they work on themselves, right? So yes, everybody should take the responsibility to work on themselves. But the problem with the filters is sometimes we don't even realize that that's what's going on. right? If we've been told our whole lives that we're not good enough, or, oh, you're stupid and you're never going to be able to learn anything, or, oh, you're not good at this, or you're not good at that, or, your sibling is a better artist than you, or whatever it is, sometimes we don't even realize how those filters are impacting us. And that's why that question is so important, right? At the end of the day, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? Does it really matter if you need to think about presenting your words in a different way so that they get through someone's filter? Now, we've talked about thinking about our words or how we speak to people and their filters. But of course, we all have our own filters. So I get the question a lot, well, how do I know what my filters are? So a great way to figure out how your filter is working is to think about the things that people say that really affect you or impact you in more of a negative way, or things that you really have an emotional reaction to, right? And instead of reacting to that, take a step back, take a deep breath, and go, what is it about me that that specific thing that person just said to me put me in that place, right? Because I want you to start, when we think about the energy of communication, it's not only us communicating with people, but it's people communicating with us, right? And we need to change our verbiage, because we say all the time, that person did this to me, or that person made me feel that way. Nobody can make you feel some way. You're allowing them to make you feel that way. So it's very, very hard. I will give you that. But when something happens that really upsets you or really sets you off, you have to take a step back and go, okay, why is this bothering me so much? What is this bringing up for me? Because when it's going through our filters and it's impacting us in that way, we can really do what I like to call the deep dive into ourselves to figure out, what do I need to heal with this? Because if it was already healed, when that person said whatever they said to you, you would not be having that response. Okay. So I want you not only focusing on thinking about the people that you communicate with and what their filters are, and how to reword things so that you're focusing on being happy and not necessarily being right, right? I also want you to take a step back and think about your own filters and the things that people say to you that maybe don't sit right with you, because that's really where the healing begins. And we cannot focus on healing others unless we are also doing the work on ourselves. I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. I want to thank you for joining me. And if you did enjoy this podcast, be sure to share it with a friend, subscribe. And if you'd like more information on the work that I do or on our healing center, you can visit us at spiritquestnc.com. And I also want to extend a special invitation to our free online Zoom happy hour with guided meditation that I do every week on a Tuesday night. You can find out more information about that on our website, spiritquestnc.com. And remember, life isn't always rainbows and butterflies. So each and every day, make the choice to be fantabulous.